who is the founding partner and managing director of MISCO, which is an independent consulting group operating in Malta, Italy and Cyprus. Mr. Zahra is an economist by profession and has a wealth of practical hard experience gained over many years of leading organizations in private and public sectors. So we need to continue.
Process. Thank you. Thank you. And I must thank UCAR for that thing. Where is UCAR? I mean, UCAR. I'd like to thank you for for this invitation and for this opportunity. In actual fact, I'm not sure as to whether, in terms of age, you mentioned 13 to 30. I'm past that age, unfortunately. But what I can do with you is share absolutely a number of my experiences in the setting up of a company. I was so encouraged today with Dean, in actual fact. I was impressed in process, really. When a young person who has set up a business with all this, energy and with all this enthusiasm, but also with great competence. You noticed, first you have to go for your own skills and ensure that you have your own skills. In my case, in actual fact, I won't be going into checklists, as the banker has very well done, or MDC, Malta Enterprise, as Malta Enterprise has, they've actually done. But I'm going to talk about the heart. I'm going to talk about the soul. I think because after all, it is heart and soul. And one thing, in actual fact, I can put all these ideas all together, all the ideas that you have brought, you'd find them on the screen in a second, in actual fact. Even the scribble that you have mentioned. Remember, you said you scribbled down some ideas. And in actual fact, I don't know how this, let's see how this moves. Starting off with the MISCO story, it does start with scribbles. These were my scribbles 30 years ago. In actual fact, when it was even more than that, in 1982. And, in this company, these are my scribbles. I'm not going through the scribbles, but just to tell you that you need to scribble quite a lot. And, these papers today, which I had written on, by the way, they're blue papers, which were copies, and I kept them because they're, in actual fact, I make sure that, a company that you start up, you would like to see it from heaven at one stage or another, not in hell, because otherwise all the papers will get burnt, but in heaven where these papers can remain intact. But, this is the heart and the soul. It's the energy that you need, a lot of energy. They'll be talking a lot about that. It's that we need to empathize a lot, which is the best form of communication, short of telepathy, empathizing. And you'd need as well to have, really a lot of enthusiasm. MISCO is today 30 years old. It was set up, we registered the company, I think on the 8th of May, 1983. I was 27 years old then, and Lawrence Zamid, who is my age, by the way, slightly younger by days, and we worked at that time at Malta Development Corporation. I won't go about the stories about the motivation, all right, because there's a lot about motivation. But the interesting thing was that, I called him to, an office, my father's office in Valletta, one afternoon. I had already scribbled a number of ideas, and then we started talking to each other as to how we can organize this company, which initially had to be solely only a market research company, but from there onwards it developed into another ideas. We went to our lecturer, it was a great thing. We wanted to hear what our, lecturer, who went also at university together, Lawrence and I, to John Gregg, and we went to his house in St. Julian's. Just imagine, two young 27-year-olds going to their lecturer, and our lecturer told us, look, I'm thinking of leaving lecturing at university. Is there space for me to join you? Now just imagine a 27-year-old. For a number of years, that was the happiest moment of my life. There were others then which were ended. Well, my wife wouldn't have really liked, that. Well, the actual fact was, I talk about my partner as well. I talk about my wife as well in all this process. But it was so, you feel as if you're flying, really, when you get that type of reaction. All on the basis of a paper. By the way, the company now we're actually not one company, but 8 companies. We've 8 companies in Malta, Italy, and in Cyprus. And I must also say about my company that we're also talked about banks and bank financing. We also went into venture with young people whom we felt have all that energy and all that enthusiasm. We ventured into accounting, a company called 3A, we're the largest shareholder in that company. We're also in a public relations company and also in a company in Cyprus, which is basically a replica of what Mr. does here. But, I talk about these 3 E's, and these are, by the way, the E's which I strongly believe in. And I start off with energy. And it's so important when we're talking about entrepreneurship, that entrepreneurship is not only about that urge, about the emotion, but there is a lot of reasoning which needs to be put into it as well. Sometimes we say, you have to be creative. Of course we need to be creative. And there has to, creativity is critical, but we have also to put reason into it. We need to reason it out. And this is why the business plans are so critical in this process, because they give you the opportunity, to reflect. There is that enthusiasm, but then there is the element of reflection. So it is intuition plus reason. But entrepreneurship is a lot about energy, the sense of achievement, the sense of fulfillment. But the lovely word that Dean used, but with great modesty, with great humility, and being prepared also to make mistakes, and also to fail in certain cases. So it is so important that this sense of fulfillment, this sense of achievement. Let's face it, I started off, I do actually still write poetry, and I wrote 2 plays during my university time, and I love art. And this element of creativity, I remember my grandma telling me once, when, my grandma told me, you won't make much money with, with your poetry. I did publish, by the way, a book of poetry when I was 17 years old. And, probably, I have quite a stock if you're interested, in my garage of that book. But the thing is that there is the last point, that the motivation in starting up a company is much more about passion rather than money. Money comes second. It's the fulfillment that you get and the achievement that you have created something, that you have built something. And I think that has to be kept in mind. Don't do it, or don't start anything just for money. But you have to feel really that this is your extension, that it is really part of you. And I make these points here because that the third bullet point about self-awareness, self-determination, self-discipline, self-motivation. Those of you who are familiar with emotional intelligence would understand that these are really, the components, all right, of emotional intelligence. That those elements are, in actual fact, you would be doing them subconsciously initially. What am I good at? what are my strong points? Which strong points I am afraid of? Because, overstrength can become a weakness. Which are my weak points? And this is why a comment that you've made about teamwork is also critical. I would never have done anything of this sort on my own. But Lawrence and John, initially John then left after a while, after I think more than 9 years, and and setting up his own company. But it was so important at that stage to have the support of a team of individuals that give you also this element of self-confidence. But you also need knowledge and competence. You need to know your subject. You need to work hard on your subject. Any engineer, anyone who is in ICT, would take that for granted. But when you're dealing with consultancy work, even the way we came into training, we used training. The first training course was with the Malta Institute of Management in November 1983. And I remember, our intention was using a training course to promote our market research services. People were so enthusiastic that they were asking us, we need more of these courses. And, we were running at that time. I remember that the first year in 1984, we ran 4 courses in a year. I think we run around today, around 8 to 10 courses a week. And we train 2,000 people a year and over in certain years. So, the idea was, it was basically an opportunity that, young people were telling us, we need to know a little bit more about what marketing is, or about what market research is. And it wasn't in the scribbled paper that I showed you earlier on. I don't like the term work-life balance, because work-life balance means that there is a demarcation line between work, which can give you the impression that it's something bad, and life, which is something good. I believe in work-life plus, because it's really putting work and life together would always give you something which is more. It's like the 1 + 1 is not equal to 2, but 1 + 1 is 3 and more. And therefore, if this is the case, what about your partner? And here I'm not talking about your business partner, but I'm talking about your life partner. There has to be understanding. Things that are interesting you, that you are so much inspired by, you have also to make sure that the person, me and my wife have been knowing each other since we were 17 years old. We were at junior college before university together. And this was also another important element, because we actually grew up together. We were, 2 teenagers. And knowing each other's urges, interests, sense of achievement is a critical element. Thank God, our relationship withstood all the ups and downs of starting up and moving into business. And this was only possible because there was this understanding. The partner support is a must, because we're talking of long hours, a lot of effort. It's also exciting, but it's also painful. I remember in one case, by the way, I would like to make a comment. Of course, I was also chair of a bank for a number of years, for 7 years. But Misco has never had an overdraft. We always worked with our own money. We started off with 500 Maltese pounds. Today, we have a turnover of over 3 million euro, and this is a turnover without, with people who are actually delivering. It's all value-added of people working in Malta, people working in Cyprus, people working in Italy. long hours, much effort, and your point, you made it in a different way. Seek, you said, seek always the best, always improve or do the best. Always, notice, don't be a perfectionist, but always seek perfection. Always seek a possibility on how to improve on what you're doing. Our payroll today is 120 employees in Malta. We have others in Greece, in Cyprus, and others in Italy, with around, in all, a payroll of 150 employees. Now, the main point is that this is a value. You mentioned mission and vision, values as well, which are so critical that the people working with you have. Empathy, intuition towards an opportunity. What is your vision? You need emotions and intellect, perception, understanding continuously what your customer needs. And today we open this up even further. We spoke also about reputation at one point. We have also, we're not any longer talking about shareholders and clients, but we talk about stakeholders, that is, us in society. What is the reputation that our organization has in the society and the communities that we operate in? And why do we empathize with these? Because we have to put ourselves continuously in the shoes of the people who are actually using our services, who are taking benefit of our services, who are taking advantage of our services. Empathize, therefore, with your customers and your shareholders. Enthusiasm. Enthusiasm towards knowledge. Go on reading, studying. Go abroad to conferences. Learn what is happening in countries which are always more advanced than us. Sitting there, listening, building your list of things to do when you come back to Malta, to be able to implement some of them, adapt some of them, adopt some of them. Plug yourself to what is happening in the mainstream. Never be insular, but always be outward looking. Learn from the experiences of others. There are three, in actual fact I'll create 4, and I'll tell you why. But there are 3 papers, journals, that are a must. The Economist, Bloomberg's Business Week, Harvard Business Review, monthly. And then the 4th, I go through the Financial Times every day, but it's so lovely to buy the FT Weekend, the Weekend Financial Times. This is one of the investments, because what you're doing, besides attending conferences abroad and seminars abroad, is while you're relaxing and enjoying, Saturday afternoons or Sunday afternoons or going to the beach, but at the same time, you're again plugging yourself to interesting learning, knowing what is going on, what is happening around you. What is then your own personal competitive edge? What is your business advantage? Now, this is interesting, because in a startup, it becomes very difficult to distinguish between personal and business. Obviously, then the business, takes a life. It's like a pregnancy initially, where the child is still in the female body. And therefore, people, there is, and then it moves out and starts having a life of its own. So it is so important at the very first stages to try and understand what makes me different from the others. What would make me be of benefit to the society that I'm living in. And again, even on this point, I make another point. Startups are more about giving than taking back. There is a lot of enjoyment and fulfillment in the fact that you are providing a product and a service to others and seeing that that service and product someone is getting satisfaction out of. And belief in yourself, belief in others, and enjoying what you're actually doing. I mean, I think this is enjoyment. The word which I might have missed throughout my brief presentation was positive thinking, which was used more than once. I think that with this positive thinking, this element of enjoyment gives you a lot of comfort with yourself and with the others that you're working with. Thank you.
Well, you only need the light when it's burning low.